SCP-9001, also known as Goku, and SCP-204, also known as Krillin, have just barely managed to deflect SCP-682's energy beam. They are left drained of much of their power and at a loss of words as the entire facility has gone into lockdown due to a containment breach set off by the hard-to-kill lizard. The site director, having been forced to the ground due to the immense beam struggle, is the first to compose himself and get back on his feet. The director notices how calm and more sure of himself SCP-204 is around SCP-9001. He was never this cooperative. Maybe he really did just need a friend, but he couldn't entrust everything to these boys. He knew far better than them the destruction and death these recently released SCPs would bring. They were not merciful, or even able to be reasoned with in any way. Having worked closely with all of them, most were either selfish, pure evil, or both.
Boys, we need to head towards the main entrance and get out of here. Let security and the MTF squads deal with this.
The site director's words fell on deaf ears. He looks at Krillin's expression and he can easily tell that the young child is scared. Being the smarter of the pair, he knows that this is no game. He glances towards Goku, and his facial expression couldn't be any different. Although SCP-9001 looked depleted from expelling almost all of his ki, his eyes were filled with excitement, and he couldn't help but smile at this life-threatening situation. This boy, or rather Saiyan, was truly a warrior whose only purpose was to fight.
Don't even think about it, 9001. There's a reason why I cannot let you fight the other SCPs. These are well above your skill level.
The site director should have known better, as his words only seemed to encourage the boy even further. But even though Goku desired to have more battles, he couldn't help but also notice all of the lesser power levels start to drop like flies.
There are people stuck on the ground that need our help. Let me do what I've been training for. Let me help them.
You are not ready. Not to mention your stamina, or what you call ki, has been depleted with that last struggle. You're not going to do anything. Let's go. Until Fox has a quick response time, we will follow protocol.
Quick? People are dying. I can help.
9001, you will not disobey my orders, and you will follow me out the main gate.
I think 9000 is right. We can't let all these people die. The least we can do is help the people on this level.
You guys are not listening.
A researcher's body plops down onto the floor in between them. Her soft, decomposed skull turns to mush when it makes contact with the hard floor, standing everyone around her. Goku and Krillin exude confusion, and the director exudes fear. He shoves the boys towards the door of the office they were in, and quickly rummages for his keycard. An old, decomposed man faces to the ceiling, just enough for him to peep at his new prey. He could sense the fear in the site director and from the bald-headed boy, but oddly enough, none from the spiky-haired kid. He cackles to himself and launches his trap. Right in front of the director, a hand emerges from a black puddle on the floor. It holds the director by the neck and begins crushing his throat. Goku quickly picks up his dark, disgusting key signature. It's vastly different from any living thing he's ever faced. And on top of that, beyond its goopy black puddle, he can sense that his key signature is never-ending, infinite. Nonetheless, Goku springs into action, quickly going for a karate chop on the old man's exposed forearm. But before he could really do anything, another rotting portal opens up above. This distracts Goku as he picks up various weak key signatures. People near death. 17 near corpses fall down from the ceiling. Goku abandons his rescue plan to save the director. As these people take precedence, Krillin snaps out of his stupor and goes to assist. He summons his colony and forms nets to catch them. Between the two of them, they're able to save all of the fallen bodies. They safely lay them down, trying not to harm their delicate, rotten skin. They quickly shift to saving the director, but he and SCP-106 are long gone. Having a close look at the bodies, they truly look like they've been decomposing for a long time. A young researcher puts his hand up, and Goku grasps it. Goku feels his fingers start to sink into the yellow-like flesh. He goes to remove his hand, but using all of his remaining strength, the young researcher tightens his grip and stares at Goku's face. His expression changes from fear to acceptance and determination. He parts his blackened lips. "Leave!" The young researcher's hand falls apart at the conviction at which he spoke. Within seconds, everybody begins to inflate and bloat, giving off a disgusting smell of raw excrement and death. Goku steps back as everyone's key signatures begin to rise. All it took was one to set off a chain reaction of continuous explosions. Guts, rotted blood, and gunk painted the interior of this office. Krillin quickly shielded himself and provided Goku with one as well, but being so close to the explosion, it could only negate so much. The pressure quickly overpowered the nanomachines protecting Goku, sending him flying backwards into the wall. This is a continuation of my series, What If Goku Was an SCP? Please make sure to like and subscribe and yeah, enjoy the video. SCP-106 appears to be an elderly humanoid male with a rotted exterior. His motivation seems to be his love of pain and torture inflicted upon humans between the ages of 10 and 25. He has various abilities to accomplish this motivation, such as hibernation, shape-shifting, facing through solid objects, the ability to write anything, but most importantly, the ability to enter and exit his own pocket dimension, in which he is quite literally a god. Goku lays in a puddle of rotted flesh, blood, and excrement, pieces of organs dangling from his head and shoulders. The young Saiyan slowly fades in and out of consciousness as his friend Krillin approaches him. Within 5 minutes, Krillin's world went from complacency to an utter nightmare. He had known there were dangerous creatures housed within the same facility he and his new friend Goku were in. Ever since his battle with Goku, he had accepted his inferiority to him, quelling the consisting urges he had to get revenge. SCP, or rather, himself, was to blame for this contradicting feeling. Ever since he was 4, he had lost himself within his new identity, not really knowing who he was before. But now, in this true test of his courage, his true self showed itself. He wanted to approach and help his friend, but they told him otherwise.
30% of us is what's left. Retreat, consume, and hide. We do not belong here.
We can't leave him. We're not leaving him.
He's dead. We're not. The ceiling above us is breached. Escape is the certainty.
Krillin wanted to contest his flawed logic, but he couldn't. The dark hallways, the screaming, and the tumbling of walls he could hear, it all served to make him doubt himself and his selflessness. In his own contemplation, he never noticed the second Goku began to sink into a black puddle. The Saiyan boy surrendered his consciousness to it, along with his fate. The beam struggle that ensued between the Saiyan and the hard-to-kill lizard had barreled completely through the entirety of the power room, knocking out the main grid. Even 1 second of the power malfunctioning has delved every denizen in his facility, worker or not, into a world of nightmares. He was beautiful, but no one was there to appreciate him. Well, that wasn't entirely true. On occasion, orange-clad misfits came to him. They kept him company, and they polished him as he should. But most importantly, they looked at him. But instead of admiration, their eyes were filled with terror. When they looked away, that's when it got him really angry. Why couldn't they understand that perfection was right in front of them? Not even their basic needs should have come above looking, but when they did, they paid the ultimate price. All it took was a second without power for him to barge right through the steel door and start helping these apes remember what they were missing out on. And if they ever dare disrespect him, well, he'll just make them regret it. Tweezers picked through a severed appendage, too mangled to identify the creature it belonged to, but the plagued masked doctor paid no heed to such an irrelevant detail. His mission was far too important to pay attention to such trifles going around him. He had convinced his captors to award him fresh human corpses to experiment on, and at this moment, said corpses were assisting him in provoking the muscles in his newly acquired animal. The zombie walked toward the other side of the room and struggled to pick up a small saw. That's when it happened. The first time in quite a long time for the intention of the plague doctor to be taken away from him. A sudden laser ripped right through his floor and consumed his zombified assistant. Seeing an opportunity to extend his research to more reactionary subjects, he made his way down and out of his containment cell and into the chaos. Why couldn't they just leave him alone? Why can't they understand that he isn't worth it? Their gaze just brought him pain and anguish. He was finally secluded from them, from prying eyes, but once again, they just had to look. One moment he was safe in his dark box, and the next, he was being lifted and melted by a beam of pure energy, tore right through his home, and someone just had to look. Couldn't they understand that it just made him angry? He didn't want to kill, but they made him, and if it took him erasing every pair of eyes that could possibly enrage him, he would do it so that he can finally be alone. Goku's head pulses heavily. He awakens from a restless sleep. He struggles to open his eyes as they are sticky with dried blood. His wounds throughout his head had been half sealed from the dried blood clinging all over him. He's never been this weak before. He can't seem to find his bearings with his normal senses, seeing as a majority of his ki has been drained from his previous struggle. The last thing he remembered was being sunk into the floor by the same black puddle that the director was forced into by that old man. So where was he? Did they not go to the same place? Goku stood up and started walking with a limp. He was at the end of a long hallway, and the lights flickered on and off. He sensed them. Various creatures he had encountered before. 3 or 4. And at the end of the hallway.
Help, help, don't leave.
Various instances of SCP-939 blocked the end of the hallway and started whispering towards Goku. Goku knew these creatures. They were weak, malicious tricksters. But being injured and depleted himself, was it really right for him to think of them as weak, especially being outnumbered? Nevertheless, Goku took his battle stance and focused on the hell to come. 4 skinless canines guard the end of the hallway. They carefully trot forward and stop at the middle. They eye Goku down. measuring him up. "Oh, there you are. Come here." They speak in words that aren't theirs. Goku ignores the petty attempts to scare him and is super focused on the inevitable conflict before him. How effectively could he kill these things? In that instant, he detects a fifth crawling through the vents above. In the half second that he looks up, the four at the end of the hallway enter into a full sprint, and the one above crashes right through, diving straight at the injured Saiyan child. Goku, without really thinking, launches himself up, uppercutting the one diving for him, along with the falling SCP-939. Various pipes were also falling. He grabs one of them midair and throws it like a javelin right into the leader's leg, piercing right through him, making him fall over, disrupting the sprints of the others. The one coming through the vents gets sent flying upwards and smashes his cranium onto the metal vents, killing him and getting his corpse stuck. It dangles and drips blood right in front of Goku, and he lands on his feet. The three remaining canines rush past their falling, and all three go for a bite at Goku. Goku leans all the way back and roundhouse kicks the farthest one on the left, sending him right into the other two. He backflips to gain some distance. The remaining instances of SCP-939, sensing that even weakened, this boy is too much for them to handle. They start to scurry off. Goku wastes no time in retaliating his own offensive. He runs towards and jumps. He aims with his feet as he descends with great force and aims at the middle of the remaining two. He lands directly on the head of the one in the back and on the high lengths of the one farthest away from him, killing one and disabling the other. Goku then proceeds to grab the crippled one from the back and suplex him, bending its spine until it splits in two, killing it. He lifts himself and looks at the massacre he just made with them. He felt bad, but deep down, he knew they couldn't be left to their own devices. Lest they pile up more corpses, Goku began walking through the maze-like layout of the facility, coming across various empty rooms and corpses. His ki slowly recovered, allowing him to increase his radius on his ki detection. He specifically searched for the old man that attacked him and Krillin. He found neither, just a big power level of SCP-682. He could hear the lizard tearing through walls, as he seemed to be engaged with something else. He decided to make his way towards them and also stop in his madness. Goku had no clue which door or which hallways led him to where he needed to go. He only knew the general direction of his destination, until finally he came across a long hallway with various containment chambers on both sides. He never really bothered to learn of the other SCPs, so all of the numbers really meant nothing to him. All of them were locked behind a card scanner, which he didn't have, nor wanted to expend the little energy he had in destroying the door. He finally came to the end of the hallway and began trying to slide the door open, except it was stuck, locked rather. It required a keycard which Goku did not have. He began considering whether it was better to just tear the door down or conserve his energy and find another way through. As he pondered this decision, he sensed something behind him. He spun around and walked forward. He didn't see anyone besides a strange sculpture. Wait, was this here before? Goku could have sworn that this part of the hallway was empty when he walked past not 10 seconds ago, but his ki detection could play no tricks on him. Clearly detected a ki signature coming from the sculpture. Goku then proceeded to blink as he finished that thought. Another one of them. Who dared take their eyes away from his beauty? How many had to die before they truly understood that he was the only thing worth appreciating? The sculpture had added another researcher's body to his kill count. He stepped over the recently deceased as it crushed his bones with each step. He continued to wander the halls and continued to massacre. Some gave him the attention he needed, but they always faltered, and therefore they always died. He found some disgusting dog-like creatures all executed rather brutally, which he seemed to admire. One of them was still alive, and it stopped him in his tracks. Could this creature be any different from his previous encounter? All he could do is be patient as it stared, and then it jolted as a loud crash was heard above. It instinctively looked towards it, and once again SCP-173 grew angry, and he broke its neck, like all of them before him. SCP-173 is a mysterious entity, seemingly encased in a concrete and rebar structure. Line of sight must be held. If not, SCP-173 will proceed to break or strangle the neck of its victim. It secretes a brown liquid composed of blood and feces. It moves at incredible speeds and is immeasurably strong. SCP-173 followed the trail of corpses, looking for the perpetrator of these killings. Maybe they would be able to provide what he needed. Shuffling through the halls at incredible speeds, he followed the stench of rotting flesh and blood, not too dissimilar to himself. SCP-173 finally came across a hallway and made a turn, and stopped dead in his tracks. At the end of this hallway stood a young boy with spiky hair covered in black blood. He again stood still and waited. His life had been nothing but disappointment, but with this boy he felt something different. Not only could he tell that this one was without fear, but could also feel a strong sight on him. Or rather, looking into him more deeply, two sets of sights upon him, he was sure no one else was near them. No one else could possibly be looking upon him. He stood there like the statue he was meant to be, still and spectacular. And the boy blinked. The young boy blinked, but he didn't feel it. He didn't feel the disrespect, nor the anger he had always felt. Even though this creature just blinked, kept on looking. He stared directly into him. He looked beyond his outer casing and peeked inside. He felt naked in front of him, and he felt like he finally found someone who could truly appreciate him for what he was. Again, the young boy blinked, and again, SCP-173 felt nothing, and that made him so happy. He began secreting his brown liquid in excitement. Finally, someone who understood him, someone who admired him not only from the outside, but from the inside, someone who loved him. Goku looked at the statue rather confused. Did you really miss something? No, he didn't. A strong key signature was clearly inside that casing. He approached it cautiously, expecting it to attack him like every single thing so far. The sculpture made no move besides expelling some sort of brown liquid that made Goku flinch and gasp at its awful smell. Although he didn't smell so good himself, he came within arm's length and examined it much more closely. A rather mediocre spray paint drawing on a mess of concrete and rusted rebar. Whoever made this had a strange sense of art, but Goku paid no mind to it as he seemed to find it rather amusing. He poked it and it made no reaction. He began touching it and applying small amounts of force towards it. It was surprisingly sturdy for a jumbled mess of construction material. He looked at his face and smiled at it, but it made no move, no reaction whatsoever to Goku's handling. Goku stepped back and looked puzzled. He instead went back towards the steel door and prepared to strike it down. That's when Goku heard a scraping of concrete against metal. He quickly turned and saw that the statue was right behind him. It had moved rather quickly, way faster than even Goku could move. Goku stopped trying to rationalize SCP-173's existence or its motive. Its key signature gave off strong but selfish vibes, but it didn't seem to be hostile towards him, so he paid him no mind. Goku summoned some ki and punched the door down so he can progress. Goku continued to crawl through the dimly lit facility, came across various signs of struggle and fights but no bodies. Nonetheless, he grew much closer towards the true strong key signatures. Every time Goku made any significant headway, SCP-173 slid through the floor and appeared at arm's length behind him. Goku tried various times to catch his new friend moving, but he was always faster, almost instantaneously. Goku came across another locked door, but this one seemed much sturdier, and Goku, being heavily depleted of ki, did not want to punch it down. He had to reserve some strength. He decided to continue another way, or at the very least find a key card. He turned back and walked backward. As he walked, he heard the door crash down, and he quickly turned to see the culprit. SCP-173 had removed the door as he stood in between the doorway, and Goku was very happy.
I guess you aren't that bad, huh?
SCP-173 made no remarks or no movement. He simply stood there. Goku squeezed past him and into a large open space room. It seemed to be a cafeteria of sorts. There were researchers, D-class and security guards, all dead. Various corpses were dismembered or cut into ribbons. Some still were unidentifiable. Goku was upset he couldn't really do anything. This loss of life was very telling of his own weakness, and of the true evil some of these SCPs held within themselves. Goku decided to continue forward, even though he could always eat, and this was a cafeteria. Him indulging himself would be in bad taste. He looked forward and saw where the perpetrator had forced his way in. It had destroyed the door completely. He walked towards it and was determined to stop all of this. He heard the fight raging on between SCP-682 and something else, and once again he moved forward, much more determined. The director awoke in darkness. He could see nothing besides the distant sounds of mortars, gunfire, and men screaming. He reached up towards his neck, last remember it being crushed by SCP-106. His throat was completely fine, as if that interaction had never happened. The director knew better. He knew where he was. He always knew just exactly what he had signed himself up for when he joined the SCP Foundation, and later was promoted to site director. Not really having a family or friends, he had completely drowned himself in his work, so he never had to think. There was never a dull moment for him. He loved his analytical work, but right now, all he could do was think. Hours seemed to pass for him, with the backdrop of a war going on all around him. He thought back to his life throughout the years, and he thought about SCP-9001 or Goku. He had grown very fond of the child. He was very pure-hearted, not caring about what people thought about him, unlike himself. The director knew he was inside SCP-106 dimension. It was something he'd mentally prepared for that singular possibility of being trapped inside someone else's world. But to be frank, he wasn't prepared at all. SCP-106 slowly stepped forward and stopped in front of the director. He cackled and knelt beside him.
What do you want?
The director waited for his response. Anticipation of what he could possibly say or do was killing him inside. He spoke once again to try to cut the tension.
I said.
The director stopped himself as he became startled at the face before him. His vision finally restored. No doubt the work of the old man right in front of him. SCP-106's face was that of an old man who was midway through decomposing. His skin was rotted and darkened. His eyes were bulging and dark, and his teeth were barely visible as they matched his dark figure. He continued to cackle until finally he spoke.
Do you remember when you kept me locked away, tortured every day? I couldn't move. I just sat there and thought about the various ways to show you my pain. Now, you will learn.
The director froze in fear. He did not know what to say, but he knew absolutely nothing could get him out of this. The ground before him disappeared and he free-fell downward into darkness. The sounds of war getting distorted and louder until they were muffled. As he splashed into a pool of unknown liquid, he pulled himself up and began to melt. His skin began to liquefy and he could feel his skin start to slide off his muscles. It hurt in every way imaginable. He flailed inside this bottomless ocean of a black substance. After his skin, his eyes began to drip out of his eye socket. At this moment, he regretted ever being in the SCP Foundation. The only comfort that he had was the fact that he could soon die and leave this pain behind. But as he began to lose consciousness, he felt a hand tear through his back muscles and grasp his spine as it pulled him further into this black ocean. Again, he found himself free falling, but miraculously, he was intact. He could see again. He was completely healed. He fell into a black void until he came to a sudden stop at the top of a black protrusion sticking out of the ground. The director was impaled as you could see his guts on top of the spike. He lost all sensation below his chest, and his own blood formed a pool just below him. It stained the ground red as he slowly became unconscious amidst the pain. Cullen saw his newfound friend Goku disappear under a black portal. It had happened so fast he did not have time to react. Perhaps he did not want to because he had planned to leave him behind. Cullen was heavily confused as he seemed to have contradicting thought, and it was due to them. He had had enough. They were going to listen to him, and not the other way around.
We're going to save 9001.
We're going to leave. The exit is right above us.
No, if he hadn't redirected that blast, we would have died. Not even you could have deflected that much power.
You, it's we. We are one.
That's what I thought as well, but you're thinking differently now. You have selfish intentions. I won't have it. You'll listen to me.
Fine, but we're only gonna help 9001. No one else.
Krillin, having made a shaky do with SCP-204, sent them out to feast on the corpses laid out throughout the room. Most of the meat was rotten, but the colony that is SCP-204 made quick work of the meat strewn about as it picked through everyone. Krillin made quick work of the floor underneath him as he began tunneling on the ground trying to find Goku, or that old man that took him. He jumped into the abyss, not entirely knowing of his fate, but determined to try and help his new friend. SCP-204 had capitulated to his host's desires, so that's what he thought. The hive mind had other plans. A black role-play doctor strolled through this vacant facility with an entourage of corpses waddling and limping behind him. He had greatly loved this golden opportunity to finally further his research. He had come across various corpses ripe for experimentation and revived them to be his assistants. He came across various volunteers for his experiment, but all of them seemed to be infected with pestilence, so he did his best to rid them of it, and even more zombies joined him. Truly, he was doing good work. His minions once again brought him a good specimen, a young girl dressed in white robes. SCP-049 is a humanoid entity that bears a resemblance of a medieval plague doctor. It is obsessed with a disease known as the pestilence. No one seems to know exactly what it is, and it seems to infect the majority of humans. SCP-049's goal is to rid humanity of the pestilence, and will become hostile towards any individual who possesses that pestilence, using his innate ability to stop all bodily functions at a singular touch. After killing those with the pestilence, he resurrects them through a crude surgery that's from his doctor's bag, which seems to be an endless void. Those who are resurrected come back as shambling corpses, or better known as zombies.
Child, come to me.
The zombies held their tie and forced her towards SCP-049. SCP-049 felt pity for the girl. She had been overrun by the pestilence and had neglected herself. Her very own essence had been in jeopardy, and still, she remained stubborn. She tried to force herself free from the grasp of the walking dead, but her struggle was in vain. Poor girl, SCP-049 thought to himself.
Please, don't kill me. Please, please.
Noticing that everything she was doing was in vain, she had broken down, simply repeating the same word over and over again. Please.
Do not cry, my child. I'm here to save you. My work is vastly important. Various types of animals.
SCP-049 commanded his servants to loosen their grasp, and she fell to the ground crying. He knelt down to meet her gaze, and he spoke as softly as he could.
You're a very, very sick young girl. The pestilence has crept inside of you without you realizing, and it has only gotten worse with your endless toil working with these clown doctors. You have neglected yourself long enough. Don't you think you deserve salvation? Escape from this sick body, and cure.
The young woman met SCP-049's eyes and stopped crying. Even though she was surrounded by corpses, she felt some sort of relief from the words of the doctor. She hesitantly nodded, somewhat expecting herself to be saved. SCP-049 held out his hand, and the young woman took it, wholeheartedly believing in his vague words, or rather, the hope he gave her.
I am secure.
The instant she made contact with SCP-049's hands, she felt her heart stop beating. She stopped thinking in that instant, and in that moment, she was free, finally liberated from this horror. Her body went stiff, and she fell forward into the arms of SCP-049. Dead, SCP-049 gently laid her down and opened his bag to begin operating. Krillin ran throughout the vicinity, beating upon the fallen to restore his swarm-like powers. Luckily for him, there was plenty of corpses lying around. As he ran past the hallway, he noticed a crowd gathering near a staircase. He stopped dead in his tracks. Perhaps they knew where 9001 was. Perhaps he was amongst them. He approached recklessly, and the closer he got, the more he regretted his decision. These were not people he wanted to be around. Actually, on second look, they weren't people at all. The zombies turned around and dispersed to reveal SCP-049 standing in the center, halfway working with the young girl he had just killed. Her stomach, guts, and brain were taken out of their rightful places. SCP-049 ignored the bald human as he was too invested in this operation. A zombie tapped his shoulder, not exactly being subtle. Nonetheless, it worked to get him to pay attention to the situation at hand. SCP-049 stood up. Stature and demeanor displayed a sense of entitlement and confidence. Krillin did not know exactly what he got himself into, but he knew a bad situation when he saw one.
Child, come forth. You're suffering from a great sickness, and I am the cure.
Krillin did not know how to answer, so instead he slowly started stepping back.
You're no rogue, child, and from your looks, you're certainly no fighter. Come and do your part in saving humanity from the pestilence.
Krillin knew better than to take the bait and lose his control, but he simply did not take kindly to people making him feel inferior. Krillin made no notion that he would comply, and instead stood his ground and stuck out his tongue in SCP-049.
Child, you're infected with the pestilence. Your actions are not your own. Surrender yourself, for I am the cure.
He motioned his 15 odd zombies towards the bald child, and all of them complied. They began aggressively shuffling towards Krillin. In an instant, Krillin activated his ability, and his swarm began attacking the zombies. He swarmed the corpses and chopped them up within seconds. They tore through them with precision, consuming and defeating them at the same time. Krillin looked smugly at SCP-049, as now he was at 100% power. He slowly approached the SCP.
I have no idea what you are, but I have no time for this. Have you seen a spiky-haired boy?
SCP-049 ignores his question and begins walking towards him with his arms stretched out. Krillin instinctively sends his colony of nanomachines to attack SCP-049, and they quickly swarmed the doctor. They begin tearing through his clothes and attack him directly, wanting to cut him up. But the second the nanomachines make contact, they stop functioning and drop dead on the floor. Krillin pulls back as he can tell that nearly 30% of his swarm died in that attack. He did not know how to respond as SCP-049 began closing the distance between them. Krillin did not know exactly what this creature was capable of, but he at least knew not to touch him. Krillin made his swarm hug him closely like armor. He sprinted between SCP-049 and the wall. He mistook the agility and speed of SCP-049 as the doctor made a swipe at him, but quickly his armor did its job and took the blow for him, killing them in the process. Inside he panicked, but kept running, trying to get some distance and get away from him. That's when he felt a cold hand grasp his ankle. Krillin looked down at the culprit, and it was the young girl that the doctor was operating on. Her grip was stronger than what he anticipated. Within that second, SCP-049 closed the distance. SCP-204 swarmed him, formed a shield in front of its host, trying to protect him. SCP-049 plunged his hand into the swarm and was instantly killing them. 70% went to 60, 50, then 40. His weird powers to stop biological functions worked quite well on the nanomachines, as underneath their metal exterior, they were biological. Krillin calmed himself and attacked the hand that held him in place. He formed a small disc that sliced through the girl's hand. He was finally free and sprinted as fast as he could away from SCP-049. He had lost 70% of his fighting force, and he regretted ever taking his opponent for granted. SCP-049 watched as this plucky boy evaded him. He looked down at his falling assistant. He sighed. Such a travesty. People always disrespected his work and never understood its importance. He decided to pursue this boy and teach him what it meant to get in the way of science. He began walking, as running was unbecoming of a professional. Goku knew he was extremely close to SCP-682's battle. He could clearly hear battling and crying. The closer he got to the battle, the more he heard this wailing, high-pitched and piercing. It was hard not to pay attention. Goku finally turned the corner and he could see it. A large room, or rather, rooms, all connected together from its walls being destroyed. There he saw him, SCP-682, or rather, he thought he did, but he looked vastly different. He was no longer on all four, but instead stood tall on two legs. He was was slim, muscular, and severely damaged. Was he fighting for him to be in this state? He saw SCP-682 get launched into the wall beside him. Goku looked in awe at the sheer force of power displayed before him. SCP-682 was inside the steel wall, and its lower half slid off its body. SCP-682 roared in pain, and that's when Goku placed his eyes on his opponent. The naive Saiyan looked upon a sickly-looking humanoid. He was gray, lanky, and very tall. He had sharp teeth and even sharper claws. He was constantly wailing and screaming as if in great pain. SCP-096 is a pale, lanky, gray, tall humanoid. It will remain docile unless looked upon, and this can even be achieved through a recording or photo. It will then proceed to wail and seemingly throw a tantrum. As it enters an enraged state, it will then exert speed, strength, and power well beyond what it seems to be capable of, directed entirely towards the person who looked at him until they are dead. SCP-096 laid in his own charred remains. He was nothing but a skeletal figure now. Having been almost disintegrated by a strange beam, he was far from dead. He simply started regenerating, his skeletal figure not changing much as he regained his skin and appendages. He got up and felt it. Once again, let gaze. He began babbling and covering his face as if trying to stop what was coming, but he knew it was inevitable. He had been torn from his safe space and put into the gazes of the people. He never really knew who he killed, but once they were dead, he started to calm down once again until they looked again. He went throughout the facility tearing people to ribbons, exposing himself to even more eyes, and getting himself into a chain reaction he could not escape. Constant pain and humiliation were all he felt until he came across somebody he couldn't get rid of. SCP-682 slid out of his metal box along with the acid that held him in place. He had been diminished to a disfigured glob of flesh, but that didn't matter. His years stuck in this prison didn't matter. He had found power, a way they could never imprison him again. Began regenerating his old body, but deemed it unnecessary. Began adapting to his newfound power. He shed his mask and became smaller. Instead of 4, he stood on 2 legs. Instead of bulk, chose condensed power, and instead of a metal box, he chose freedom. He got used to his new body as he began walking. Of course, the security guard shot everything at him. They started off with rocket launchers sent from up above. Using his key, he identified every one of them and sent a small key blast at each one, blowing them up before they reached him. He jumped up into the tear he made in the ceiling. It had taken him some time to learn exactly how his newfound powers work, but being locked away for years helped him tremendously in fixing that. He ran through the site focused directly on the Saiyan child until he came across a disturbing creature shuffling ever so slightly. SCP-682 paid this creature no mind and decided to barrel through him, but as he was about to reach it, he started straightening out his posture and began babbling incoherently. He covered his face and screeched at the top of his lungs. SCP-682 saw its key signature spike. It went from a normal human to well above anything he's ever fought, and within half a second, SCP-096 pounced on SCP-682 and tore right through its face. His enlarged claws made short work of SCP-682's head. SCP-682's corpse lay there, dead. SCP-096 began to calm down. Another death weighed on him as he began to sit down, but then he felt it again, the anger swelling up, but he could tell it wasn't anyone new. No. SCP-682's head began to regenerate. He quickly sat up and blasted a hole right through SCP-096. This did little to quell 096's anger. It stood back up and lunged towards 682. They fought for quite a while. Their abilities canceled each other out. Both had immense regeneration abilities, and both were monsters in their own right. But 096's anger met no match. He was ferocious, and if 682 wanted any chance to win, he had to adapt. Krillin ran throughout the site, eating any corpse he could get his hands on. He slowly started to recuperate his SCP, and though he ran, somehow SCP-049 kept pace, always walking at an incredible rate. That's when he ran into what seemed like a dead end, with a room marked SCP-500. He quickly busted down the door, seeing that it was a dead end. Inside the containment chamber, he found a plastic jar with red pills. Upon searching the room, it was truly a dead end, and he could hear SCP-049's footsteps. He could only think of one thing, and that was to go deeper. He used the storm to quickly tunnel underground, and he collapsed the floor and came tumbling down into the battle between SCP-096 and SCP-682. And there, he saw Goku standing in awe at the power displayed. He was happy as could be and quickly ran towards his friend, but that's when Goku came flying to him. The ignorant, sane child had laid eyes upon the shy guy, and he came to regret regretted. With immense speed and power, and with the Saiyan not being able to react, he was sent flying with a strong claw right to his chest, opened it up and spilling blood. Krillin thought fast and made a cloud to cushion his friend. He used them to slow Goku down, successfully preventing him from taking the worst of the impact. Krillin never saw exactly what had dealt such a blow, but whatever it was, he didn't want to find out. All he wanted to do was get his friend and get out. Along with debris, a rain of red pills came falling down. It was the same red pills he had seen before.
Give them to the Saiyan.
The what?
Your friend, get him one of these pills.
Are you sure? What did they do? What if?
Get up and feed it to him.
Krillin did as he was told and opened up barely breathing Goku's mouth. His chest was made a mess. His ribcage was exposed and broken. He was barely intact. He tilted his head up as Krillin held him in his arms and slowly inserted one of the pills, and he forced his jaw shut and made him swallow. Goku began convulsing as the red pill took its effect. SCP-500 is a plastic jar filled with red pills. Upon consumption of said pill, the consumer will be cured of all wounds and diseases, usually taking 2 hours. Essentially a senzu bean that takes longer. Goku felt his wounds that covered his body start to close and his consciousness start to slowly come back. Due to his sane digestive system, the effect of the pill was greatly shortened, but still, it'll take some time. His ribs straightened out and his organs closed themselves. His chest muscles joined and his skin began to heal. He could feel his power slowly rising. Krillin became startled as he saw SCP-682 recover and start once again engaging with SCP-096, and he also flinched as he heard the slab of concrete slide. He laid eyes upon a statue. SCP-106 couldn't help himself anymore. He was addicted to torture. He relished in the pain and misery he could cause on others. He was having fun with the site director. Being in his pocket dimension, he kept killing him in ways he could never anticipate. Starvation, impaling, burning, drowning, everything he could think of. This man suffered through, and he kept bringing him back to relive it all again. But there was a creature whose very existence was pure hell on earth, so he took the bait. He looked at the director and smiled at him. His fun was over, but he was never the one to throw away his toys once he had his fun with them. He always locked them away for later, but this one needed false hope. He grasped the director and spoke through his mangled throat.
You're lucky. You get to go back.
He choked the director once more, and they both sank into Oberon and appeared on the battlefield.
We'll keep our eyes on this one.
Krillin didn't know what they meant by that, but he knew that his SCP knew a lot more than they let on. I guess they were truly separate entities. SCP-049 fell through the hole Krillin had dug through and fell right behind SCP-173. Krillin was up against the wall not far from both SCPs. He had a clear view of the battlefield and saw how the shy guy and hard-to-kill lizard fought. He laid Goku down and hoped he could defend him. He knew how powerful SCP-049 was, and he could tell that he was holding back. He prepared his battle stance and hoped to hold his ground. SCP-173 couldn't believe it. He could tell that the green man could also see right through him. How rare for him to find two individuals who could see him as his true self, but as quickly as his dreams came true, the quicker they were shattered. The boy he had been following got crushed. Now the boy with the spiky hair couldn't see him. He couldn't see his beauty, and it made him furious. How could he betray him like this? How could he let such a pitiful creature like that attack and shut him out from his true beauty? He was set to kill him himself, and as he slid to put an end to him, he was stopped dead in his tracks. Another onlooker, but he knew this one wasn't like his prized possession. SCP-049 couldn't believe the amount of power he was feeling. As he looked upon the battlefield, he spotted his prey, a young boy way over his head, and as he jumped down, he noticed a peculiar-looking sculpture. The people nowadays have no class. Although he was a man of science, he knew good art when he saw it, and this wasn't it. It was hideous to look at. He stabbed both hands into it and lifted it up. He began spinning to gather momentum, and SCP-049 spun around with SCP-173. He finally released the creature. He finally released the sculpture, sending him hurtling through the air and through walls, finally out of sight.
I do hate it when you get physical. It was time to take out the trash.
SCP-049 stepped close and took a look at Goku.
Oh, another specimen for me to operate on. With a sad child, I investigate my work.
Krillin stood his ground and dared him to step any closer. SCP-049 began moving forward, and he looked at this pathetic attempt at a struggle. Then, he wasn't looking at them. He was looking behind him. That's strange. He didn't remember ever turning his head, but right behind him, or in front of him, stood that sculpture made of concrete and rebar. SCP-173 had recovered rather quickly and blitzed back just to snap SCP-049's neck. SCP-173 stood triumphantly over the corpse of SCP-049, and he wanted more. He couldn't move. That boy, no. Those machines were looking at him, holding him in place. SCP-106 appeared before SCP-096, casting his eyes upon this skinny, uncanny humanoid. SCP-682 stopped his offensive. He could pick up SCP-106's key signature, and it seemed to him almost infinite. This enraged SCP-096 even further, hurling himself towards SCP-106. The old man simply slapped him down, stopping him in his tracks. He had been called because of this one's pains and screaming. His very existence was torture, and SCP-106 knew how to have fun with him. He grabbed SCP-096 by the foot and released the director from his dimension, dropping him in the middle of the ruined facility. The old man laughed maniacally. This was the most fun he had ever had. He once again sank into the ground and into his black portal, bringing SCP-096 with him straight to his personal hell. SCP-682 had been cut to pieces various times, and various times he had come back. SCP-096 was annoying, but he was glad that he was gone. Now, he could focus on his true goal, Goku. He got up and simply charged the beam. Krillin picked up on this quickly, and Goku wasn't quite healed. He quickly picked them up and moved them out of the way as the beam came fast. It took SCP-173 by surprise and flung him further into the facility, and then he bolted straight towards Krillin. Krillin had to respond, and he did. He sicked his 100 nanomachines onto SCP-682 and they started to cut through him. In an instant, they made him into mincemeat. The hard-to-kill lizard was tired of being cut, so as he reformed, he started to grow natural armor, and when they attacked again, the nanomachines did nothing. Some managed to dig straight into his body, but SCP-682 simply regenerated too fast for 1 or 10 nanomachines to do any real damage. Krillin had to do something. His attack started to mean nothing, and the lizard simply started to launch ki blasts towards him. He was killing his colony little by little as they were trying to defend. SCP-682 was tired of people thinking they had a chance. He was immortal. He could never lose. He adapted to any kind of power anyone could throw at him. His whole time in this facility had been an execution that they couldn't complete. He was born to be a natural enemy of anything living. At the end of time, it would be him to be the last being standing. No one would say otherwise. Not this stupid Foundation, not the Scarlet King, and definitely not these boys who stood in his way. SCP-682 lost his temper, and he was going to end this. Now, he began morphing back into his original form. He abandoned his slim figure and enlarged himself to a gigantic size. He began growing and growing with thick armor covering his whole body. His head broke through every ceiling until he finally reached the outside sunny weather. He dove his head downwards and swallowed both the boys up. Krillin tried to fight back, but what could he do? He was fighting against a titan. Krillin and Goku fell down a large esophagus, and they were dropped into the stomach of SCP-682. Krillin quickly started to tunnel through his soft belly. They were slowly melting inside, and he needed to get them both out of there as fast as possible. Just when he thought he had made it through the thick muscles, he quickly came to a realization. SCP-682 had a thick carapace that almost was impervious to cutting attacks. Goku was yet to recover, and perhaps he never would. Krillin was stuck, didn't think himself strong enough to cut through. Plus, his SCP was depleted of power. He looked at Goku, who was breathing heavily, still alive. Krillin couldn't give up. He had gone through so much. He owed his friend his life, and he would repay it. He sent his swarm on a hunt. The inside of SCP-682 was made of flesh, and although it was mostly decayed, you could still make use of it since there was so much. He began devouring the inside of the hard-to-kill lizard. Krillin came back to 100% within half a minute, and he began his counterattack. He raised his right hand up and cupped his left one towards his chest and began to focus. His swarm started to form a sort of disc at the base of his palm. He focused everything on cutting power, as that was his only way of attacking. He felt his own power begin to swell and force its way up. Every single one of his nanomachines dedicated themselves to this one attack, and it paid off. Krillin launched his destructo disc to cut his way through the belly of SCP-682. SCP-682 started to rampage as it began to eat everything in sight. That's when it struck him. He couldn't feel his lower half, and that's when his top half gave out as his enlarged body, as tall as a skyscraper, was cleanly cut in half by SCP-204. It cut through everything, flesh and carapace. Krillin took Goku into his arms as the Saiyan warrior finally woke up, now being completely healed. They landed roughly, but at last, far from the toxic inside of that lizard's belly.
Krillin, did you do that? You've gotten way stronger.
Yeah, I'm something of an SCP myself.
What?
Nothing. I'm just glad you're safe.
The boys stood up, hugging each other. They had gone through so much, and they were ready to leave. Goku picked up the key signature of the sculpture, but he paid him no mind. He was friendly after all. The ignorant Saiyan was half right. He was friendly, but only to him. The entirety of Kulin's swarm had been launched sky high with the pure force of the attack, and they quickly hurried back to its host, but they were too late. Within the blink of an eye, SCP-173 traveled right behind the bald-headed boy's back, and within another blink, SCP-173 had been flung back, but was quite sturdy and fast. He could feel the boy who could see through him was finally up. He was ecstatic, but an annoyance lay between them, so he simply removed someone who couldn't appreciate him, and now finally, he and the Saiyan could be alone once again. Goku looked on in horror as SCP-173 snapped Krillin's neck, instantly killing him. The pure ignorance on behalf of Goku had gotten his friend killed. SCP-682 began to reform his body, and again towered over Goku. Goku's power began to rise as he felt his ki start to go out of control. With his recent Senkai boost and the fact that he was surrounded by monsters well above his power level, he finally broke a limit he never thought he had. His rage took over and he started to hyperventilate. His hair began to rise and electricity began to emit from his body. Pure energy came from his body as it began to dominate the pigmentation of his hair and eyes, turning them yellow and green respectively. As SCP-682 noticed Goku's power level skyrocket, Goku screamed at the top of his lungs, and he felt an endless amount of energy leak from his body and push SCP-682's gigantic body back. In that instant, SCP-204 had lost its host, and in that instant, its plan came to fruition. The bald boy was a very welcoming host, but after their own battle with SCP-9001, they wanted him, and now they had him. They hurled themselves towards Goku, taking him as his new host. Goku sensed no hostility of SCP-204, so he let them do as they pleased. He felt them circle around him and he began imprinting himself onto the Saiyan boy. The combination of SCP-204 and SCP-9001, Goku's power level skyrocketed even more. He generally felt like he could do anything. He looked at SCP-173 and raised all of his new swarm at him. He used them to channel his ki and boost his ki blast. All of them in an instant lit up with ki and formed a coordinated attack on SCP-173. They blasted him with such intense heated energy that they began to destroy it. For SCP-173, this was acceptable. He never knew he could die because he always killed anyone who got near him, but the most perfect being stood right in front of him, and he was being basked with mighty light. SCP-173 accepted his fate, and he let himself be completely consumed by Goku's Super Saiyan form. Goku disintegrated the sculpture in a blink of an eye, just like he did to his friend, but the rector sat up and looked at the destruction and raw power being displayed by Goku. Never knew he could be this powerful. Could he possibly be a match for SCP-682? The Super Saiyan began scaling SCP-682's leg at an incredible speed, with SCP-204 falling right behind him. It was weird. They knew exactly what he wanted to do and helped him not only use his ki much more efficiently, but gave him a huge boost in power. Goku noticed how elegantly they flew on their wings, and that gave him an idea. He commanded them to get under him and lift him up, and they did as they were told. Goku began to levitate and then fly. He used his ki to propel him even further, and they reached speeds that were much faster than his running speed. SCP-204 formed a cloud under him, and they flew all the way up, seeing the sun up close for the first time and the face of SCP-682.
I didn't know we were capable of that. You're full of surprises, aren't you, little boy?
Goku didn't talk. He simply responded with a strong kick to its chin, sending the lizard flying upwards. He was taken aback by the sheer strength that this boy was displaying. SCP-682 used his eyes to channel his ki and shoot various quick eye beams at Goku. Goku dodged with his version of the flying Nimbus and answered with a range attack of his own. Using SCP-204, he formed a pole which proceeded to extend to match the curve of SCP-682's head. He jumped into the air to meet him, and with the flick of his wrist, he decapitated SCP-682. His huge head fell towards the ground, and Goku landed on his flying Nimbus. He began to cup his hands and bring them backward. SCP-682's body was free falling in the air from Goku's powerful kick and netted directly into the Super Saiyan's attack. Goku channeled his ki into a ball as he chanted. SCP-204 assisted by gathering energy way faster and giving it an amazing boost in destructive power. Goku launches Kamehameha Wave, and that consumed the entirety of SCP-682's body. He expelled the maximum of his power output, completely disintegrating the body of the hard-to-kill lizard. His Kamehameha Wave shot into outer space, traveling right past SCP-179. The head of SCP-682 fell to the ground, and he began to morph his body back down to his smaller bipedal form. He needed to do this quickly and match that boy's power output. If he had that kind of power, he could easily destroy this planet, but no matter, he would get it soon enough. As he regained his form, he looked at the boy up in the sky, but was caught by surprise as he sensed another powerful key signature. He quickly turned his head to face his new foe, but he felt a large spear penetrate his body, even through his carapace. Then he felt 1,000 melee weapons pierce him. They pinned him down to the ground. Goku landed swiftly near SCP-682's pinned body as he once again saw him growing bigger, but besides the lizard stood a tall, dark-skinned man. Goku stared at the young man, and he stared back. Both knew they were staring at strong opponents. Even though one didn't have ki, Goku didn't know who this person was, but his ki gave off malicious vibes, so he prepared his battle stance.
Well there, friend. We mean you no harm.
A man dressed in green army garments made his way to the pair, who were just about to launch themselves at each other.
Why hello there. We're MTF Omega-7 of the SCP Foundation. Who are you, little boy?
The general looked at Goku and quickly came to the realization as to what he was.
You're an SCP. Stand down, son.
The general reached for his gun, not trusting Goku.
It's okay, General. Please don't fire.
Goku looked surprised that the director was still alive. He had almost no injuries, though the director did have injuries. They were ones Goku couldn't see.
It's okay. He's with us. He took down that.
The director pointed at the creature pinned by various spears, swords, and axes.
That? And what is that exactly?
The general's face went pale white as he instinctively took various steps back.
Abel, make sure that thing doesn't get free.
The dark-skinned man rolled his eyes as he began plunging more weapons into SCP-682, making him roar in pain. Goku looked down at the destruction of the facility. The whole site was destroyed, and he could see MTF squads go into the ruins and engage with the other monstrosities that were unleashed. Goku didn't care about that though. He flew off and landed beside the corpse of his friend. He picked up his body and flew him back up above ground. He dug him a grave and laid him to rest. Goku began to power down from his super saiyan state. Tears welled in his eyes as he began to cry. The director told the others to leave SCP-9001 alone for now. He mentioned to the other MTF squads, and especially MTF Squad Omega-7, that SCP-106 was still loose. They acknowledged that information and went straight to work, using to temporarily contain SCP-682. Goku sat near Krillin's grave for well over the entirety of the day, not moving a muscle. He didn't know what it meant to die. All he knew was that his friend was gone forever. Goku knew in his heart that he could not let these monsters loose. He had a responsibility to protect the people of Earth, even though he did not know any of them. He got back up and said his final goodbyes to his friend. He wiped his tears and he clenched his fist. He was determined to secure, contain, and protect humanity from the anomalies of this world. Thank you all so much for watching my video. This video took me a long time due to me being lazy and procrastinating, but I'm finally glad it's out. There will be a final edit of all of the parts into a movie with exclusive content in the form of an epilogue. This will be the end of Kid Goku as an SCP. I don't know when I'll make a continuation since I want to make other types of content, but you can rest assured that it'll be story driven and exciting. Thank you once again for giving it your time of day, and please make sure to like and subscribe. Oh, and follow my Twitter. Goodbye.